My name is Adrian Cole, and I'm 34 years old. Before everything changed, I worked as a technology engineer in Manchester. My life was loud, messy, unpredictable, until I moved to Nova Eden, the city proudly advertised as the model of happiness. Now I live here with my wife, Lena, who's 32 and carries a smile so gentle it feels unbreakable. She rarely complains, rarely raises her voice, and somehow always looks as if nothing in the world has ever hurt her. Every day in Nova Eden follows the same perfect script. We wake up at 9. We eat a carefully prepared breakfast. We go to our assigned jobs. We relax in the evening. And by 9 at night, the whole city goes quiet, synchronized like a well-designed machine. No stress. No conflict. No fear. For a long time, I believed I had finally found a safe, peaceful life. But that was before everything started to shift, because of one tiny detail that shouldn't have mattered at all. Nova Eden always felt like a paradise built from concrete, glass, and an endless supply of artificial smiles. Every street was spotless, every face calm, every routine perfectly arranged as if the entire city had been rehearsing the same script for years. People here were polite in a way that almost felt rehearsed. No arguments. No raised voices. No one ever rushed, stumbled, or seemed lost. It was as if chaos didn't exist in this place. Every evening, Lena and I would walk around the artificial lake near our apartment. The surface of the water was always still, unnaturally still, reflecting the identical high-rise buildings around it. At exactly 7:30 p.m., the pathway lights flickered on in perfect unison, forming a flawless ring of white around the lake. Our neighbors would greet us with the same cheerful line every time. Another perfect day, isn't it? Always the same tone, the same smile, the same rhythm. There were no car horns in Nova Eden. No homelessness. No visible sadness of any kind. People laughed at the appropriate moments and rested at the appropriate hours. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. And there was something else. Something we all seemed to ignore. Almost no one remembered when, or how, they first arrived in Nova Eden. They would shrug, laugh awkwardly, and say things like, "It must have been years ago," or "Everything before this feels blurry." Back then, I dismissed it as harmless forgetfulness. Why question comfort? Why analyze happiness? Lena adored the tranquility. She often said the city felt like a dream that never ends. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to believe her more than I admitted. But dreams, no matter how perfect, always have cracks. And one quiet morning, the flawless system of Nova Eden began to falter, one glitch at a time. The morning it happened, I woke up to an unfamiliar silence. Not the soft, curated quiet of Nova Eden, but a hollow, heavy stillness that made my skin prickle. I turned my head toward the digital clock on the wall. 7:12 a.m. For the first time in 4 years, I hadn't woken up at exactly 9 o'clock. I blinked, confused, expecting the display to flicker or correct itself. It didn't. And then something even stranger washed over me, an old, almost forgotten sensation. Hunger. A dull ache twisted in my stomach. It felt foreign, wrong, like a memory my body wasn't supposed to access anymore. In Nova Eden, we never felt hunger. Meals appeared at precise times, and our bodies never asked for more. Trying to shake the unease, I walked into the hallway. The lights that usually brightened at my presence stayed dim. Doors remained closed. Not a single sound echoed through the building. The entire complex felt powered off. Something was malfunctioning. A few minutes later, Lena woke up. She stretched, smiled, and greeted me with her usual warmth, except today, the warmth wasn't real. There was a stiffness in her voice, a hollow ring beneath each word, as if she were imitating the idea of being human rather than being human. I asked her a question I hadn't dared ask before. "Do you remember our life before Nova Eden?" She blinked once too slowly. "Why would you ask that? We've always lived here." A lie. Or something far more terrifying, the absence of truth. That was the moment my instincts shifted. A thin crack appeared in my perfect world, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I spent the entire day observing people, patterns, behaviors, and the city that once felt flawless began unraveling before my eyes. I noticed the residents were divided by clothing that matched their supposed happiness tier. Bright white for the highest tier, faded gray for the lowest. I had never questioned it before. Had never wondered why those in darker clothes walked slower, smiled less, or spoke with a mechanical rhythm. Then I realized something else. There were no children under the age of 9. Not a single toddler, not a single infant. The youngest faces looked strangely similar, too similar. Later that afternoon, I witnessed something that froze my blood. Harvey, a neighbor from the next block, slipped on the pavement and scraped his hand. Blood appeared, thick, dark, undeniably real. He stared at it with a mixture of confusion and terror. Why do I feel pain?" he whispered. I didn't know how to answer him. I wasn't even sure how to breathe in that moment. That night, at precisely 9 p.m., the citywide speaker system crackled to life for the first time in weeks. Residents of Nova Eden, please proceed to sleep mode immediately. Sleep mode. Not rest. Not bedtime. Sleep mode. But I didn't sleep. I lay awake, listening. Beneath the building, beneath the streets, beneath the entire city, I heard something, a low, rhythmic mechanical hum. Deep. Heavy. Alive. Something was operating beneath Nova Eden. Something massive. Something hidden. And I knew, for the first time since arriving, that my world wasn't real. Or at least, not the world I thought it was. Whatever Nova Eden truly was. I had to uncover it. Even if the truth destroyed everything. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The strange silence, the hollow smiles, the mechanical hum beneath the ground, they all pointed towards something deeply wrong. So I asked Lena again. This time, she didn't answer immediately. She stood still, her eyes fixed on a spot on the wall, as if searching for the correct response in her mind. After almost a full minute, she whispered, "Adrian, please don't look deeper. This place is safer if you stop asking questions." Her voice cracked, and something inside me twisted painfully. Safer from what? I asked. The question hung between us like a blade. But she didn't, or couldn't, answer. She just shook her head, her expression folding in on itself like she was fighting an internal command. That night, curiosity and fear pushed me out the door. I didn't know what I was looking for, only that I had to find it. I walked through the quiet streets, past the identical houses and the smiling posters promising a life without fear. That's when a shadow stepped out in front of me. Gareth Miles, the head of the recreational district. A man who always greeted us with a smile so rigid it might as well have been carved into his face. Tonight, that smile didn't reach his eyes. "You're wandering after hours," he said calmly. "That isn't recommended." I tried to act casual. "Just taking a walk." His grin sharpened. "Curiosity is the seed of dissatisfaction, Adrian. And dissatisfaction leads to correction." A chill shot through my spine. "What does that mean?" "It means," Gareth continued, leaning in, "happiness is not for those who question it." The words hit me harder than any nightmare. Happiness was not a state here, it was a rule. A requirement. A currency. I backed away and hurried home, my heart pounding against my ribs. When I told Lena what Gareth had said, she broke. She clutched her head, sobbing, whispering over and over, "I don't want to be taken. I don't want to be reset." Reset. The word made my blood run cold. Someone, or something, was altering memories in Nova Eden. Erasing doubts. Rewriting fear. Fabricating peace. I held her, but she trembled like a trapped bird. I finally understood, she wasn't defending the city, she was terrified of losing herself to it. The next morning, I made my decision. "I'm leaving Nova Eden," I said. Lena didn't argue. She didn't beg. She only looked at me with a sadness deeper than anything I had ever seen. "If you leave," she whispered, "you won't be Adrian anymore. Not the Adrian I know." Her words shattered something inside me, because I knew she was right. The truth changes people, and I was already changing. I kissed her forehead one last time. When Gareth tried to block my escape, I fought back, not out of anger but desperation. A quick strike, a moment of chaos, and I ran. I sprinted up the central tower, the tallest structure in Nova Eden, toward the rooftop where the only helipad waited. My lungs burned, alarms blared through the city, and spotlights swept across the sky. As the helicopter lifted off, I looked down at the glowing grid of perfect streets, at the rows of identical homes, at the artificial paradise I once believed in. The city grew smaller, colder, unreal. And in that shrinking view, I understood. I wasn't escaping a paradise. I was escaping a cage. A cage built of smiles. A cage built of lies. When the helicopter touched down, the world outside Nova Eden felt like another planet. Broken buildings leaned toward each other like exhausted giants, and the sky was a heavy sheet of gray smoke. The air tasted metallic, harsh but real. It stung my throat in a way that reminded me I was alive. A man approached, walking with a limp but carrying an expression far warmer than any smile in Nova Eden. "Welcome back to the real world," he said. His name was Caleb Ward, a former engineer who now lived in a resettlement zone about a mile from the landing site. He handed me a bottle of water. I hesitated before drinking, but when the liquid hit my tongue, a shock ran through me. It was the first time in years I tasted thirst, and the relief of quenching it. Caleb watched my reaction and nodded knowingly. "It takes a while," he said. "Your system has been shut down for years." As we walked toward his shelter, he explained everything. Years ago, when global unemployment and riots spread like wildfire, governments built hundreds of cities like Nova Eden, artificial sanctuaries for people who had lost direction, hope, or stability. Inside, food was laced with drugs that suppressed fear, erased memories, and kept emotions flat and manageable. "You weren't prisoners," Caleb said quietly, "but you weren't free either." That truth cut deeper than any lie I had heard in Nova Eden. That night, I sat alone by a cracked window in the resettlement center. The wind outside howled like a living creature, carrying dust and the scent of burned metal. There was no calm schedule here, no perfect smiles, no Lena sleeping beside me. Just silence. Just the raw weight of my own thoughts. For the first time in years, I felt the full ache of loss, and strangely it didn't break me. I realized something simple, yet powerful. Pain meant my emotions were real again. Fear meant I had choices again. Loneliness meant I was no longer living inside a dream someone else designed. I didn't have Nova Eden's perfection anymore. But I had myself, and the fragile, honest freedom to rebuild who I wanted to become. And that, in its own quiet way, felt like waking up. The days that followed were not peaceful. They were raw, exhausting, and painfully real, and that was exactly what made them meaningful. I had to relearn everything. How to plan a day without a schedule telling me what to do. How to cook food that wasn't perfectly prepared by automated kitchens. How to earn money, make decisions, and live with the consequences of those decisions. Caleb helped me find work at a small mechanical repair center on the edge of the resettlement zone. It wasn't glamorous. The air smelled of oil, the tools were old, and the noise never stopped, but it was honest. If I made a mistake, my hands would ache, not my memory. Nothing and no one would reset me. My first week was a disaster. I dropped tools, miswired circuits, and burned dinner every single night. But each failure reminded me of something essential. Pain proves I'm alive. Struggle proves I'm free. Caleb often sat with me after work, sharing stories about people who escaped other artificial cities. "We're not broken," he said once. "We were just asleep." His words stayed with me. Some nights, I thought about Lena. I wondered if she still woke up smiling at 9 a.m., if she still walked around Nova Eden without fear or curiosity. I wondered if a part of her ever questioned the perfection around her. I remembered her real smile, the one she had before Nova Eden, the one she flashed when raindrops touched her eyelashes. That version of her felt like a ghost now. Sometimes, I wrote letters to her. Not for sending, just to free the thoughts inside my chest. In one letter, I wrote, "I hope one day you wake up early, like I did. I hope you feel hungry. I hope you feel something real." Weeks turned into months, and life slowly gained shape. One afternoon, while repairing an old generator, I met a small group of newcomers, people who had escaped other manufactured cities just like mine. Their eyes were tired, confused, but alive. Exactly like mine had been. We shared our stories around a makeshift table. Every story was different, but the theme was the same. We were people learning to live again. Together, we decided to rebuild something resembling a community. Not a perfect one, certainly not a controlled one, but a place where people could think, feel, fail, and try again. We planted a small garden. We repaired broken homes. We taught each other skills we had forgotten. We talked, we argued, we laughed. All things no one in Nova Eden could do freely. Slowly, I realized freedom isn't a luxury, it's a burden you must choose to carry every single day. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of that burden. For the first time, I felt like my life was mine again. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the broken silhouettes of ruined buildings, I felt something shift inside me. A quiet realization, gentle but undeniable. I had lost a comfortable life. But I had finally found myself again. For the first time in years, no one told me when to wake up, when to sleep, what to feel, or what to forget. My emotions were messy, unpredictable, overwhelming, but they were mine. I could feel hunger. I could feel fear. I could feel hope. And strangely, all of that made me feel alive in a way Nova Eden never could. Sometimes I thought about Lena, still inside that perfectly polished world, smiling the same rehearsed smile, following the same flawless routine. Maybe she would never remember who I was. Maybe she would never question anything the way I did. But even if I could choose again, I would still walk away. Because freedom is not a gift. It is a decision. A difficult one, sometimes painful, often lonely, but always honest. Out here, the world is imperfect, unstable, and scarred. But every step I take is mine. Every mistake is mine. Every breath belongs to me, not to a system designed to keep me asleep. That is the price of being human. And I am willing to pay it. My story leaves you with a question. What would you choose? A life of easy happiness built on illusions, or a life of truth filled with struggle but also genuine freedom? Your answer may reveal more about your heart than you think. If you enjoy emotional English stories that help you practice natural listening step by step, make sure to subscribe and follow the next episode.